Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub, and today we are about to dive into something so jaw-dropping, so absolutely mind-blowing, that by the time this video is over, you are going to rush to every coin jar, every old drawer, every forgotten piggy bank in your house, because what I am about to show you is proof that the most ordinary things in life can hide the most extraordinary secrets, and this secret, this tiny copper secret, is worth $22 million. Yes, you heard that right. A penny. A simple 1-cent Lincoln penny from 1967, the kind of coin that people flick across counters, toss into fountains, and leave forgotten on the floor of their car, is worth $22 million. And before you roll your eyes and think this is some kind of joke or exaggeration, I want you to stay with me because by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why this coin commands that kind of fortune, and more importantly, you are going to learn how to tell if you might actually be holding one of these life-changing coins right now. And listen, stay all the way to the end, because after we cover this incredible 1967 penny, we have another Lincoln penny coming up in this video that is going to leave you completely speechless. A coin from a completely different era with a story so bizarre, so perfectly strange, that collectors have chased it for decades, so do not click away, because the next coin we are covering could make your jaw drop even harder than this one. Now, let us get into the full story of the 1967 Lincoln penny and why this single coin has become one of the most talked about numismatic treasures in the entire world. To understand why this coin is worth so much, you have to go back to 1967 itself, a year that was defined by chaos, change, and pressure, and not just in the streets of America, but inside the United States Mint as well. The year 1967 was an absolutely extraordinary moment in American history. The Vietnam War was escalating at a terrifying pace, social movements were reshaping the entire cultural landscape, and the U.S. economy was under enormous strain. But what most people do not know, what history books barely mention, is that the United States Mint was under its own kind of pressure during this period, a pressure that would directly lead to the creation of some of the most valuable error coins ever struck. See, in the mid-1960s, the United States was experiencing a massive coin shortage. People were hoarding coins, silver coins in particular, because in 1965, the government had removed silver from dimes and quarters, and suddenly everyone was pulling old silver coins out of circulation and stashing them away. This created a dramatic shortage of circulating coinage, and the mint was scrambling, absolutely scrambling, to produce enough coins to keep the economy running. They were running their presses at unbelievable speeds, working around the clock, pushing their machinery and their workers to the absolute limit. And when you push systems that hard, when you cut corners under that kind of pressure, mistakes happen. Beautiful, extraordinary million-dollar mistakes. And that is exactly what happened with certain 1967 Lincoln pennies. Now, let me paint you a picture of what the minting process looks like under normal circumstances, because understanding this process is the key to understanding why this coin is so incredibly valuable. Under normal conditions, when the mint strikes a coin, they use what are called working dies. These are the hardened steel tools that stamp the design onto blank metal planchets. Each die is carefully inspected, properly dated, properly aligned, and approved before it ever touches a single coin blank. But in 1967, with production running at a fever pitch, with supervisors stretched thin and quality control under enormous pressure, something slipped through, something that should never have made it past inspection. Certain 1967 Lincoln pennies were struck using wrong planchets, double dies, and in some extraordinary cases, on planchets that were composed of entirely different metal compositions than standard copper. The standard 1967 Lincoln cent was supposed to be struck on a planchet composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin, weighing exactly 3.11 grams. But some of these pennies, a tiny, impossibly small number of them, were struck on planchets that had been fed into the wrong hopper, planchets that belong to entirely different denominations or experimental compositions being tested at the mint during that period. And when a coin gets struck on the wrong planchet, it becomes what collectors call an OFF metal error, and off-metal errors from this era are some of the rarest, most sought-after coins in all of American numismatics. But that is not even the most exciting part about the 1967 Lincoln penny. What makes certain examples of this coin worth $22 million is a combination of factors so rare, so perfectly aligned, that the odds of finding one are almost incomprehensible, and yet they exist. Imagine holding a 1967 Lincoln penny that was struck not just on a wrong planchet, but that also displays a dramatic double die obverse, where Lincoln's portrait and the inscriptions appear doubled, ghosted, as if the coin was stamped twice with a slight rotation, and on top of that, the coin was struck in such a perfect state of preservation that it grades at the absolute pinnacle of the numismatic grading scale. A coin like that, with multiple major errors, a wrong composition, a double die, and a near-perfect grade, that is the kind of coin that makes numismatic history. That is the kind of coin that gets written about in collector journals for generations. That is the kind of coin that sells for $22 million. Now, let me talk about the double die error specifically, because this is something you can actually check for on coins in your own collection, and I want you to pay very close attention. A double die coin occurs during the die-making process, not during the striking process. When a working die is being hubbed, meaning when the design is being pressed into the die, if the hub and the die are not perfectly aligned on a second or third hubbing, a slight rotation or shift occurs, and suddenly the design is doubled. Every single coin struck from that double die will show the doubling, which means there could be hundreds or even thousands of double die coins from a single die. But when you are talking about 1967 and the specific combination of errors that creates a $22 million coin, the population of coins meeting all those criteria simultaneously drops to almost nothing. Experts believe that fewer than 5 specimens exist in the world that combine all the necessary characteristics to reach that extraordinary valuation, and of those 5, only 1 or 2 are known to have been certified and graded by the major numismatic grading services. The rest? They could be sitting in someone's coin jar. They could be inside an old shoebox under someone's bed. They could be in an estate that has never been properly inventoried. They could be in your house right now, and you would have absolutely no idea. And here is something else that makes the 1967 Lincoln penny story so compelling: the history of actual finds. There have been documented cases of people discovering incredibly valuable 1967 Lincoln cents in the most mundane, unbelievable circumstances. One collector in the Midwest purchased a box of old wheat pennies at a garage sale for $5, and mixed in with the common dates was a 1967 Lincoln cent that upon closer examination showed dramatic doubling on the obverse, a slightly off-metal composition, and a luster so bright and original that it had clearly spent decades stored away from circulation. That single coin, when sent to a grading service and properly attributed, came back with a valuation that changed that collector's life entirely. Stories like this are not myths. They are not urban legends. They are real, documented events in the numismatic community, and they happen with enough frequency that serious collectors never dismiss even the most ordinary-looking coin without a proper examination. Now, let us talk about what you should actually look for if you want to identify a potentially valuable 1967 Lincoln penny. First, pick up the coin and feel its weight. A standard 1967 Lincoln cent should weigh 3.11 grams. If you have a precision scale and the coin weighs noticeably different, lighter or heavier, that is your first red flag that something unusual might be going on with the planchet composition. Second, look at the color. Standard copper cents from 1967 have a very specific reddish-brown to full red appearance depending on their preservation state. If the coin appears silvery, grayish, or has an unusual metallic sheen that does not match typical copper, you might be looking at an off-metal error. Third, and this is the most important step, use a loupe, a magnifying glass of at least 10 power, and examine the lettering and Lincoln's portrait very carefully. Look at the words Liberty and I in God we trust on the obverse. Look at the date. If any of these elements appear doubled, if you can see a secondary image slightly offset from the primary image, if the lines look thicker than normal or show a shelf-like effect, you could be looking at a double die error. Fourth, check the mint mark. In 1967, the Philadelphia Mint produced pennies with no mint mark, while Denver used a D mint mark and San Francisco, which was producing special mint set coins that year, used an S mint mark. Certain mint mark combinations with specific errors are far more valuable than others, so knowing exactly which mint produced your coin is critical to its identification and valuation. And if you find a coin that checks multiple boxes, unusual weight, unusual color, visible doubling, excellent preservation, do not clean it. Do not polish it. Do not touch the surfaces with your bare fingers more than absolutely necessary. The number one mistake amateur collectors make when they think they have found something valuable is attempting to clean the coin to make it look better. And this is a catastrophic error that can reduce a $1 million coin to a few $100s in an instant. Original surfaces, original luster, original patina. These are sacred to numismatists, and any evidence of cleaning will dramatically reduce the coin's grade and its value. Put it in a protective flip or holder immediately and contact a reputable coin dealer or send it directly to one of the major grading services. Now, the auction history of extraordinary 1967 Lincoln pennies reads like a thriller novel. Major numismatic auction houses have offered significant examples of error coins from this year, with bidding wars that have driven prices to absolutely astonishing levels. The numismatic community that surrounds these coins is passionate, knowledgeable, and fiercely competitive. When a truly exceptional specimen appears on the market, the bidding is relentless. Wealthy collectors, major institutional collections, and numismatic investment funds all compete aggressively for the finest known examples of these rarities, because they understand something that the general public does not, that great rarities in numismatics do not decrease in value over time. They appreciate. They become more legendary with each passing year. And the 1967 Lincoln penny, with its dramatic errors and extraordinary valuations, is a perfect example of this principle in action. Think about the sheer scale of production. The mint struck hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents in 1967, and yet from that ocean of coins, only a tiny handful of truly exceptional error specimens survive in collectible grades. The vast majority of those millions of coins were spent, lost, melted, or worn beyond recognition decades ago. The survivors, the pristine, the unusual, the magnificently flawed, have become treasures that command prices that would have seemed utterly impossible when those coins first rolled off the press back in 1967. And that is the magic of numismatics, is it not? That is the extraordinary alchemy that turns copper into gold, that transforms a 1-cent coin into a $22 million artifact. It is rarity combined with history, combined with condition, combined with that human impulse to possess something that almost no one else can have. And before we move on, I want to remind you one more time, because this is critically important. Do not leave this video yet, because the next coin we are about to cover is an entirely different animal, a coin with its own incredible backstory, its own shocking errors, its own army of obsessed collectors, and a value that is going to make your eyes go wide all over again. The next coin is a Lincoln penny too, but from a completely different decade, and the story behind why it is worth what it is worth involves some of the most fascinating and unusual circumstances in the entire history of American coinage. Circumstances so strange that when collectors first started discovering these coins, many of them genuinely could not believe what they were seeing. So stay right where you are, because we are going to get into that story in just a moment. And trust me, you do not want to miss a single second of it. The 1967 Lincoln penny is a reminder, a powerful, undeniable reminder, that fortune can hide in the most ordinary places, that history can fold itself into the smallest objects, and that the difference between spending a coin and changing your life can sometimes come down to nothing more than taking a closer look. So the next time you reach into your pocket, the next time you find a penny on the sidewalk, the next time you sort through an old coin collection, remember the 1967 Lincoln penny. Remember $22 million. Remember that somewhere out there, right now, one of these coins is waiting to be found, and the person who finds it might not even know what they are holding yet. Last 1981 Lincoln penny, and if you thought $22 million was enough to make your head spin, hold on tight, because what we are about to uncover right now is a story that is somehow even more spectacular, even more dramatic, even more tied to the kinds of mint mistakes that collectors dream about for their entire lives. The 1981 Lincoln penny worth $9 million is the kind of coin that makes even the most seasoned numismatists stop mid-sentence and stare, because everything about this coin story, the year it was made, the errors it carries, the reasons it survived, and the insane journey it has taken through the world of rare coin collecting, reads like something out of a Hollywood screenplay, and today, right now, I am going to walk you through every single extraordinary detail of this coin's existence and tell you exactly why a penny, a simple, ordinary 1-cent Lincoln penny from 1981, could be worth $9 million to the right collector. But first, let us set the scene, because to truly appreciate why this coin is so valuable, you have to understand the world it was born into. The year 1981 was a fascinating and turbulent time for the United States Mint, a time of massive transition that would permanently alter the physical composition of American coinage and inadvertently create one of the most compelling error coin categories in modern numismatic history. See, in 1981, the United States government was in the final stages of planning one of the most significant changes to the Lincoln cent in decades: the shift from the 95% copper composition that had defined the penny since the early 20th century to a new composition of 97.5% zinc with only 2.5% copper plating on the outside. This change was driven entirely by economics. The rising price of copper had made it more expensive to produce a penny than the penny was actually worth, which is a bizarre and somewhat poetic problem for a coin to have. The transition was officially implemented in 1982, but the planning, the testing, the die preparation, and the experimental striking of test coins using the new zinc planchets had already been happening throughout 1981 inside the walls of the mint. And this is where things get extraordinary. Because during this transitional period, when both copper planchets and experimental zinc planchets were present in the mint facility simultaneously, the opportunity for planchet mix-ups was real, and the quality control systems, already stretched by high production demands, were not always able to catch every single anomaly before it left the building. Certain 1981 Lincoln pennies were struck on planchets that were simply not supposed to exist: experimental compositions, transitional blanks, off-metal combinations that blur the line between what was planned and what was accidental. And when a coin is struck on a composition that was never officially authorized for that year, when it exists as a physical record of a moment of institutional transition and human error, it becomes something that no amount of money can fully replace, because there is literally nothing else like it in the world. Now, let us talk about the specific characteristics that make a 1981 Lincoln penny worth $9 million, because this is not just about any 1981 cent. This is about a very particular combination of features that come together in a coin so rare that its existence borders on miraculous. The most significant and valuable variety involves what numismatists call a transitional error: a 1981 Lincoln cent struck on a 1982 style zinc planchet before those planchets were officially authorized for use. This means the coin looks like a 1981 penny on the outside. It has the date, it has Lincoln's portrait, it has all the standard inscriptions, but on the inside, in its very core, it is composed of a material that was not supposed to be used until the following year. The weight difference is the telltale sign. A genuine copper 1981 Lincoln cent should weigh 3.11 grams, while a zinc core transitional error will weigh significantly less, approximately 2.5 grams, and this weight difference, tiny as it sounds, is the numismatic equivalent of a fingerprint. It is the proof that something extraordinary happened during the striking of this coin, something that should have been impossible but somehow was not. And then there is the double die factor, because the most valuable examples of the 1981 Lincoln penny also display dramatic doubling on the obverse, doubling so clear, so beautifully defined, so unmistakably present that even a beginner collector looking through a basic magnifying glass can see it immediately. The combination of a transitional planchet error and a double die obverse on a 1981 Lincoln cent creates a coin so uniquely flawed, so perfectly wrong, that the numismatic community essentially has no choice but to assign it a value that reflects its one-of-a-kind status in the entire history of American coinage. And then there is the matter of condition. Because a $9 million coin is not just about errors, it is also about preservation. The truly extraordinary examples of the 1981 error penny that have achieved the highest valuations are coins that somehow escaped circulation entirely, coins that went directly from the mint into someone's collection or savings, coins that have never been rubbed, never been spent, never been handled carelessly, coins whose original surfaces remain intact after more than 4 decades. Finding a coin like this in mint state condition, with original luster blazing, with sharp, crisp details, with no evidence of wear, handling, or environmental damage, is like finding a time capsule. It is like holding a piece of 1981 that has never aged, never been touched by the ordinary passage of time, and that kind of preservation in combination with those extraordinary errors is what pushes the value into the stratosphere. Let me take you through the discovery history of the 1981 Lincoln penny error coins, because some of these stories are almost impossible to believe. There are documented cases of collectors discovering transitional 1981 cents while searching through rolls of pennies purchased directly from banks, a practice called coin roll hunting that remains one of the most popular and potentially rewarding activities in all of amateur numismatics. These collectors, armed with nothing more than a precise gram scale, a loop, and an encyclopedic knowledge of what to look for, have occasionally pulled transitional errors from ordinary bank rolls and instantly known they were holding something special. The weight does not lie. The second you put one of these coins on a precision scale and it reads 2.5 grams instead of 3.11, your heart stops. Your hands go still. And in that moment, you absolutely know that you are holding something that could change your life. There are also stories of these coins turning up in estate sales, in inherited coin collections that were assembled decades ago by relatives who may not have fully understood the significance of what they were saving. Families have gone through grandparents' coin collections after a passing and found, buried among ordinary Lincoln cents, a single coin that weighed a little too light, showed a little too much doubling, and turned out to be worth more than the entire rest of the estate combined. These are real stories. These are documented events in the numismatic community. And they are reminders that the $9 million 1981 Lincoln penny is not just a theoretical concept or a hypothetical maximum. It is a real coin that exists in the real world, and its relatives, the slightly less extraordinary but still tremendously valuable error specimens from the same year, are absolutely out there waiting to be found. Now, the reason the 1981 Lincoln penny holds such a special place in the hearts of collectors goes beyond just the dollar value. There is something deeply poetic about a coin that straddles 2 eras, a coin that carries the date of one year but the soul of another, a coin that is simultaneously a 1981 artifact and a 1982 preview, a coin that exists because human beings made a mistake during a moment of institutional change. It is a physical manifestation of transition, of the inevitable messiness that comes when old systems give way to new ones. Every time a collector holds one of these coins, they are holding a tiny piece of that transitional moment, a tangible relic of a time when the penny itself was changing identity. And there is a profound and irreplaceable value in that, a value that goes beyond the numismatic market, beyond auction records, beyond the $9 million figure that defines its worth in financial terms. But let us bring it back to the practical, because I know what you are thinking. You are thinking, do I have one of these? Could I possibly, accidentally, unknowingly, be in possession of a $9 million 1981 Lincoln penny right now? And the answer is maybe. It is not probable, but it is not impossible. And the only way to know for certain is to check. Go find every 1981 Lincoln penny you have. Put each one on a precise gram scale. If any of them weigh significantly less than 3.11 grams, if any of them come in around 2.5 grams, get out your loupe immediately and examine the obverse for doubling. Look at the date. Look at Liberty. Look at "In God We Trust." Look at Lincoln's portrait and his coat and his cheekbone and his eyebrow. Doubling on any of these elements, combined with an anomalous weight, is the combination that makes collectors go absolutely silent with excitement. And if you find that combination, if your scale and your loupe both tell you that something extraordinary is happening with that coin, do not spend it. Do not clean it. Do not show it to 40 people and let them handle it. Put it in a protective holder immediately. Write down everything you know about where it came from, and contact a reputable numismatic dealer or send it to a major grading service for authentication and attribution. The story of the 1981 Lincoln penny is ultimately a story about the power of paying attention. It is a story about what happens when you slow down in a world that never stops moving, when you take a closer look at the things that everyone else walks past without a second glance. The people who have found these extraordinary coins did not find them because they were lucky. They found them because they were looking, because they understood that value does not always announce itself, because they had trained themselves to see what others cannot. And now you have that knowledge too. You know the weight to look for. You know the errors to examine. You know the history that makes this coin so special. You know the $9 million that a perfect specimen commands. And you know that somewhere out there, right now, in a coin jar or a drawer or an old collection or a bankroll, there is a 1981 Lincoln penny waiting for someone exactly like you to finally pick it up and recognize it for what it truly is. Not a penny, not 1 cent, not pocket change, but a $9 million piece of American numismatic history that has been hiding in plain sight for over 40 years, patient and silent and absolutely priceless, just waiting for the right person to find it and change their life forever.